Hey out there, today's October 31st, 2015, Halloween. Here in Northern California at about 9:25 in the morning. And today I wanted to talk about little about current events and get into some existential matters and point out a few facts. Um, Try to cut to the meat of the matter and dispel a lot of nonsensical thinking that is so commonplace, even ubiquitous. The reason that nonsensical thinking, a state of unreality, is so commonplace is because we've been trained to accept a world that really makes no sense. And what I mean by a world, I'm talking about the world system. I want to point out how these illegitimate rulers, these people that create the policies, that's a very important word to try to understand here. A policy is kind of a quasi-decree, quasi-law, kind of ground rules for us all to live by. And I want to point out how these people have basically rendered us a bunch of delusional, disempowered, dumbed down, devilish droids. And of course, Halloween is an appropriate day to point this fact out. And the problem is that when the people that are running our lives, creating the policies we live under, these are the people running our lives, because we're all forced into it. We've got to conform to the system, at least to some degree, in order to survive. That's basically excuse me, the way it is today. I'm just getting over my cold and kind of a harsh cough. But if the people that are creating those policies we have to live under, they themselves are delusional and devilish, and they follow their master in a droid-like fashion, then, what can we expect for ourselves? Since these people are the masters, and we, as underlings, let's say, subservient to the masters, we look up to them. We can't help but have a certain sense of regard, reverence for these people because of the power they wield, if nothing else. We know that anybody that can create laws, and even more dangerous quasi-laws, that certain segments of the population must follow, but others don't have to. They'll exempt themselves, for example. Then we can see how we're going to have big problems in our society. So that's why it's so important. What I try to tell people is to be empowered, and not only empowered, but formidably empowered with the knowledge of the truth. That's with wisdom, with accurate information, with an accurate perception, perspective, outlook, paradigm, reality. And the way to attain this is by stepping back. Just step back and look at things from day one. Day one, you came into this world, you were born of a woman. That's the way we all came to the earth. Even Jesus came through a woman. So none of us came here short of that. Every human being came to this world in an equal way, born of a woman. We know that we were born on what is known as a planet. We know a lot about this planet. We know that it is a ball of dirt, minerals, rock, water, and it's filled with life forms of every type. Flora and fauna, creatures, animals, and plant life. So before I even get into the scientific principles of believing in a God, in a creator, I can leave it at that, and you have a pretty clear idea of what's going on here. You also know that you were born and you will die. In other words, your stay here on this planet is a temporary stay. So you don't get to keep anything that you may glean in terms of material possessions, assets, money, anything else that's physical that you may consider of value. So understanding those three basic principles, that's it. Fundamentally, you're just equal with every other man because you were born of a woman, and you're born on a planet, and you know that your stay here is temporary. Now, what about when we get into a term like ownership? What can be owned? Well, let's define the word ownership. Ownership, to me, indicates the ability to keep something. That since it's yours, and possession is, what do they say? 99% of the law or something like that. It's a huge part of the law. That if it's really yours, if it's truly your, you own that thing, then nobody should be able to take it away. Well, first, let's speak in metaphorically way. There is no ownership because everything is temporary. So we know the whole notion of ownership is absurd on its face. So we know we don't ever really own anything. Now we know that we are put into schools at a young age. Our parents raise us, they put diapers on us and they feed us and they take care of our medical needs and hygienic needs and all that sort of thing. And then we know that we go off to school. And then we say, well, there's a reason for that school. I have been told the reason for that school is so that I can learn how to cooperate in my society. I need to know basic things like reading, writing, and arithmetic. And so that's why I go to school at a very young age. And I start being taught these things. But how many people really wonder about the things they're not being taught? And that's what I'd like to point out here. I'd like to point out the fact that these same illegitimate policymakers at the top are the ones telling us from a very young age what is important learning and what is of no value, since learning it is absent from the entire school system, the educational system. Like learning things like morality, ethical standards, altruistic values, benevolent values. These things are of no value, and that's why they're completely omitted from the learning schedule, the curriculum. So, simultaneously with learning what we're told is important and not learning, of course, what we're told is unimportant, we know that there is a set of very strict rules in this civilization, in this society that we live in, the community. And that if we don't adhere to the rules, these laws, then we will wind up in big trouble, serious trouble. It'll be a very bad thing for us if we don't conform and go along with the system and play by the rules, by the laws that are set forth. Now let me ask, how many people ever stop and consider the validity of the laws we're told to follow? And where this authority comes from for any individual or any group of individuals to enforce these laws, to first of all to lay these laws on us and tell us that, if you don't do it, this is what's going to happen. Here's the consequences. Here's the implications. Here's the ramifications of you not conforming to the set of rules, these laws that we've set down. And they're very dire. We can take all your stuff. We can take your physical freedom and put you in jail. And we can kill you. For example, capital punishment. If you fail to follow the law, don't kill anybody. Murder is against the law at first degree, and there's manslaughter, and there's second degree murder. There's all these variations. But basically, we could take your life if you take somebody else's life. And nowadays, if you're drunk driving and you kill somebody, I believe they're calling that first degree murder. So essentially, you could end up going to be executed for having driven drunk, even though the fact that you were drunk may have nothing to do with the accident you had and you killed somebody, but it was actually their fault. But the truth is never comes out, because the fact that you're drunk, automatically you're guilty. So no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's the way the law reads. So we all know that we've got all these laws, some draconian, some moderately draconian, and some we think are fair and acceptable and reasonable, like don't steal. It's wrong to steal, to take somebody else's property. The reason it's wrong is not because we've taught the moral reasons why it's wrong, but we're taught the legal reasons. We're taught, well, you don't do it. Don't ask questions. Don't worry about, why. Don't get all existential and philosophical here. It's against the law. Don't do it. Here's what will happen. You will go to jail. You will pay fines. We can take your stuff, okay? End of story. We don't want to get into a moral discussion here. Go away, right? So this is the kind of realm. This is our paradigm. This is the world we've all been brought up into. So I strongly contend, based on a few basic facts like that none of us know reality. No, not one. Not me. That includes me. Is that I'm working under the same handicap as everybody else when it comes to, sorting out the logic from the illogic, the reason from the unreason, from the reality from the unreality, and muddle through this thing and come out the other end. And there was something on my mind today. I was thinking about the state of the world today, what a mess it is. Look at current events. Russia over there getting involved in Syria and throwing down the terrorists, trying to take out Bashar al-Assad. And then we've got, we're actually working with this proxy, these proxy guys, these terrorists. Well, we're not going to call them terrorists. They're freedom fighters. They're fighting against Assad, but Assad's a bad guy for this and that reason, and we got to take this guy out. So we know the pretense and the pretext. We know how absurd it is, but nevertheless, things are really heating up over there, and everything seems to be falling in line with Bible prophecy.